Ambassador Jin Soo-jin walked through the massive halls of the Galactic Senate building. The structure was enormous, built to house representatives from 12 different alien species. Each section was designed for different types of beings. Some areas had thick atmosphere for the gas-breathing nebulons. Other sections were filled with water for the aquatic hydrands. Jin always felt small in these halls, but today she felt something else. She felt watched. The human delegation was heading to another Senate session. These meetings happened every few days, and Jin had grown used to the routine. But lately, something felt different. The other senators looked at her with expressions she could not quite understand. Not anger, exactly. Something more like concern mixed with fear. Ambassador, are you ready for today's proposal? Dr. Marcus Chen walked beside her, carrying a datapad with their presentation. Marcus was Earth's lead expert on alien cultures. He had spent years learning how to communicate with the different species in the Senate. As ready as we can be, Jin replied. She straightened her formal Earth diplomat uniform. Today, they would ask the Senate to approve emergency aid for the Kelvari colony world. The Kelvari were a peaceful farming species whose planet was dying from a solar flare event. Thousands of families needed immediate help. Captain Sarah Kim followed behind them with 2 security officers. Sarah commanded Earth's diplomatic protection team. She was quiet, but alert, always watching for threats. Her eyes swept the halls as they walked, noting the unusual number of alien security forces present today. They entered the main Senate chamber. The room was circular, with each species having their own section designed for their needs. At the center stood a glowing communication device that translated languages in real time. Jin took her place at the human section, which looked like a simple raised platform with chairs and a speaking podium. Senator Veltar floated in the Zephyrian section. The Zephyrians were beings of pure energy, looking like glowing clouds of light that somehow held a basic shape. Veltar served as the Senate Majority Leader and had held that position for over 200 years. When Veltar spoke, the other senators usually listened. The session will begin, Veltar announced, his voice coming through the translation system as a calm, measured tone. Ambassador Jin Soo-jin of Earth has requested time to address the Senate. Jin stood and walked to the central speaking area. She activated her presentation device, and images of the dying Kelvari world appeared in the air above the chamber. The pictures showed farms turning to dust, families fleeing their homes, and children who looked sick and weak. Honored senators, Jin began. The Kelvari colony world faces total environmental collapse. Their sun has begun producing dangerous radiation that is killing their crops and poisoning their water. We estimate they have less than 60 days before the planet becomes completely uninhabitable. End quote. She gestured to the images. Earth proposes an immediate relief mission. We can provide transport ships to evacuate the population to temporary shelters. We also have the technology to create protective shields around their remaining cities while we work on a permanent solution. The chamber remained silent for a moment. Jin had expected some discussion, maybe questions about costs or logistics. Instead, she saw the senators exchanging looks with each other. Some were nodding, but not in agreement with her proposal. Senator Korath of the mantoid species spoke first. The mantoids looked like giant insects, but were actually highly logical beings who specialized in mathematics and engineering. Ambassador Jin, your species continues to suggest solutions that prioritize individual welfare over efficient resource allocation. Jin felt confused. I'm sorry, Senator Korath, but I don't understand. Are you saying we should not help the Kelvari because it costs resources? The Kelvari colony was established in a solar system with known instability, replied Senator Veltar. The logical response is to allow natural selection to proceed. Resources spent on rescue operations could be better used to establish new colonies with more suitable populations. Dr. Chen leaned forward in his seat. Jin could see the shock on his face. In all their time working with the galactic community, They had never heard the senators speak this way about people's lives. "But we're talking about families," Jin said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Children who did nothing wrong except be born on that world. We have the ability to save them. Emotional attachment to individual outcomes is inefficient," stated Senator Thex of the Crystalline Shard Collective. "The galactic community functions best when decisions are based on mathematical optimization rather than sentiment." Jin realized this was not really about the Kelvari. Something else was happening here. She looked around the chamber and saw that every non-human senator was watching her with the same expression. They were studying her reaction like scientists observing an experiment. "The human proposal is denied," announced Veltar. "This session is concluded." As the other senators began to leave, Jin stood frozen in place. Dr. Chen approached her, his face pale. "Jin, did you hear what they just said? They're willing to let an entire colony die because saving them is inefficient." Captain Kim joined them, speaking in a low voice. "Something's not right here. I've been watching the security feeds, and there have been private meetings between the senior senators for the past week. Meetings that didn't include any humans." After the chamber emptied, Jin gathered her team in their private conference room. The space was small but secure, with Earth technology that prevented outside monitoring. "What just happened in there?" Marcus asked, pacing back and forth. "The Senate has always been focused on practical solutions, but they've never dismissed humanitarian crises like this. I think we need to consider the possibility that they see us as the problem," Jin said quietly. "Every time we propose helping individual people, or making exceptions for special circumstances, they react like we're suggesting something dangerous." Sarah pulled up a data file on her tablet. "I've been reviewing the voting records from the past 6 months. Every proposal that prioritizes individual welfare over system efficiency has been introduced by humans. And every single one has been voted down by larger margins each time. They think our compassion is a flaw," Jin realized. To them, caring about individual lives instead of just statistics makes us unpredictable and dangerous. The next morning, Jin received an official message from Senator Veltar requesting a private meeting. When she arrived at the designated conference room, she found not just Veltar but representatives from 6 other major species. "Ambassador Jin," Veltar began, "we have a proposal that will benefit both humanity and the galactic community. Your species has shown remarkable adaptability since joining our alliance. However, there are certain human traits that create inefficiencies in our cooperative systems." Jin sat down slowly. "What kind of inefficiencies?" "Emotional decision-making, prioritizing individual outcomes over mathematical optimization, and unpredictable responses to logical scenarios," explained Senator Korath. "We have developed technology that can help humans integrate more smoothly with galactic society." "What kind of technology?" Jin asked, though she suspected she already knew she would not like the answer. Veltar's energy form brightened slightly. "Neural compatibility enhancers. They will improve human cognitive processing to be more aligned with logical decision-making frameworks. The technology is completely safe and has been tested extensively." "You want to change how we think," Jin said flatly. "We want to help humanity reach its full potential," Veltar replied. "The enhancers will reduce emotional interference in logical processes while maintaining all essential human capabilities. Earth's leadership has already been contacted about implementing this technology." Jin felt a chill run down her spine. "And if we refuse? Why would you refuse an opportunity for improvement?" Senator Thex asked, her crystalline form chiming softly. "The technology will make human society more efficient, reduce internal conflicts, and allow better integration with galactic systems." Jin realized she was trapped. If she agreed, humanity would be fundamentally changed. If she refused, Earth would likely face pressure or isolation from the galactic community. Either way, the Senate was making it clear that humanity's natural way of thinking was no longer acceptable. "I will need to discuss this with Earth's government," she said finally. "Of course," Veltar agreed. "We understand this is an important decision. However, we hope humanity will recognize the benefits of this opportunity. The trial period can begin as soon as Earth provides consent." As Jin left the meeting, she realized that the galactic community had just declared war on human nature itself. They wanted to fix what they saw as humanity's flaws. 3 months later, Jin stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic station, watching transport ships arrive at Earth. Each ship carried neural compatibility enhancers for the human population. The technology had been presented to Earth's leaders as a gift, a way to help humanity better integrate with galactic society. After weeks of debate and pressure from the Senate, Earth's government had agreed to a trial period. Jin had been granted a special exception from the enhancement program due to her diplomatic immunity. As Earth's primary representative to the galactic community, the Senate argued that she needed to maintain her current cognitive patterns to continue serving as a cultural bridge. Jin suspected the real reason was that they wanted to keep one unenhanced human around to study the differences. The first enhancement centers opened in major cities across Earth. People lined up voluntarily, excited about the promise of improved thinking and better integration with alien technology. The procedure was simple. A small device was implanted behind the ear, connecting to the brain's neural pathways. Within hours, people reported feeling calmer, more focused, and more logical in their decision-making. Dr. Marcus Chen had been one of the first to receive the enhancement. When Jin spoke with him afterward, the change was subtle, but noticeable. He still looked like the same person, still had the same knowledge and memories. But something in his eyes was different. The warmth and quick emotional responses that had made him so effective at understanding alien cultures seemed muted. "The enhancement is remarkable," Marcus told her during one of their regular briefings. "I can process information much more efficiently now. My emotional responses no longer interfere with logical analysis." "Do you miss the emotional responses?" Jin asked carefully. Marcus paused, as if the question required significant thought. "Missing something implies that its absence creates a negative outcome. My current cognitive state is objectively superior to my previous state. The concept of missing less efficient mental processes is illogical." Jin felt her heart sink. This was not Marcus speaking. This was the enhancement speaking through Marcus. Over the following weeks, Jin watched similar changes spread across human society. Enhanced humans were more productive, had fewer arguments, and made decisions based purely on practical considerations. Crime rates dropped significantly. Economic efficiency improved. From a statistical standpoint, the enhancement program was a complete success. But Jin began to notice things that troubled her deeply. Human art changed first. Musicians who had once created emotional, complex compositions now produced technically perfect but sterile melodies. Writers stopped exploring human nature and began writing instruction manuals and efficiency guides. Painters created geometrically precise works that showed perfect technique but no soul. Then came the changes in human relationships. Enhanced humans still formed partnerships and friendships, but these relationships became transactional. People chose partners based on genetic compatibility and resource optimization rather than love or emotional connection. Parents still cared for their children, but in the same way, they might care for any important project that required proper management. The breaking point came during a mining accident on the human colony of New Terra. An explosion trapped 12 miners deep underground. The rescue would be expensive and dangerous, with only a 60% chance of success. Jin watched the news coverage with growing horror. The enhanced human rescue coordinator calmly explained to reporters why they had decided not to attempt a rescue operation. "The cost-benefit analysis does not support risking additional lives and resources for a low-probability outcome," he said without any visible emotion. The trapped miners understood the risks of their profession when they accepted employment. The families of the trapped miners accepted this decision without protest. Even the miners' own parents and spouses agreed that attempting a rescue would be inefficient resource allocation. Jin found herself screaming at her apartment walls. These were not humans anymore. They might have human bodies and human memories, but whatever made them truly human had been systematically removed. She tried to contact Earth's government to express her concerns, but every official she spoke with had been enhanced. They listened to her complaints politely and then explained logically why her emotional attachment to inefficient human behaviors was preventing her from seeing the benefits of the enhancement program. "Ambassador Jin," said President Liu during their video call, "your concerns are understandable given your unenhanced cognitive state. However, the data clearly shows improvements across all measured categories of human welfare and productivity." "But what about love?" Jin asked desperately. "What about art and creativity and the things that make life worth living?" President Liu paused to process this question. These concepts represent emotional attachments that often interfere with optimal decision-making. Enhanced humans still experience satisfaction from achievement and social bonding. They simply do so without the inefficient emotional complications that previously caused suffering and poor choices. Jin realized she was arguing with a wall. The enhanced humans could not understand what they had lost because the very thing that would let them understand it had been removed. That night, Jin sat alone in her quarters, feeling like the last human being in the universe. She wondered if she was going crazy. Maybe the Senate was right. Maybe human emotions and unpredictability were flaws that needed to be fixed. Maybe she was clinging to something that was actually harmful. Then she received a message that changed everything. The communication came through her personal tablet, hidden inside what appeared to be a routine diplomatic update. When she decoded the embedded message, she found a short note. "You are not alone. The coffee shop on level 12. Tomorrow at 1400 hours. Order the Terran blend." Jin almost deleted the message, thinking it might be some kind of test by the Senate, but something about it felt different. Enhanced humans would not use coded language or mysterious meetings. They would simply state their purpose directly. The next day, Jin went to the coffee shop. She ordered the Terran blend and sat at a table near the back. After a few minutes, a woman approached her table. "Mind if I sit?" the woman asked. She was human, probably in her 40s, with the kind of eyes that looked like they had seen too much. "Please," Jin replied. "Dr. Yuki Tanaka," the woman said quietly. "I used to work for the Earth Medical Research Council until I died in a transport accident 3 months ago." Jin stared at her. "You died?" "Officially, yes. I faked my death to avoid the enhancement program." Yuki glanced around the coffee shop to make sure no one was listening. "I've been studying the neural compatibility enhancers from the outside. What they did to our people is much worse than you think." "Worse how?" "The enhancers don't just reduce emotional responses," Yuki explained. "They actively block specific types of neural activity. Pattern recognition, intuitive problem-solving, creative thinking, and emotional intelligence are all being suppressed. The aliens aren't trying to improve us. They're trying to lobotomize us." Jin felt a mix of relief and terror. Relief that she was not crazy, that her concerns were valid. Terror at the scope of what had been done to humanity. "Why?" Jin asked. "Why would they do this?" "Because they're afraid of us," Yuki said. "I've been monitoring galactic communication networks. The Senate has been discussing the human problem for months. They think our unpredictability and emotional decision-making make us dangerous to their carefully controlled galactic order." Yuki pulled out a small device that looked like a medical scanner. "I've been developing a way to reverse the enhancement process. The good news is that the neural pathways aren't permanently damaged. The bad news is that the reversal process needs to be coordinated across multiple subjects simultaneously, or the Senate's monitoring systems will detect it." "How many others are there like us?" Jin asked. "More than you might think," Yuki replied. Some avoided the enhancement by hiding in remote locations. Others have been secretly fighting the effects through meditation and mental exercises. A few enhanced humans have even started to break free on their own, though they're having to pretend to still be compliant. Jin felt hope for the first time in months. "What do you need from me?" "Access," Yuki said. "The Senate's neural monitoring network has a central hub on this station. If we can get inside and plant a reversal signal, we might be able to free everyone at once." "That's treason," Jin pointed out. Yuki smiled grimly. "What they did to our people is genocide. They killed human nature itself and left us with walking computers that look like our loved ones. I'd say a little treason is justified." Jin thought about Marcus, about President Liu, about the mining families who had accepted the deaths of their loved ones without emotion. She thought about the children being born into a world where love and creativity were considered mental disorders. "What do we do first?" she asked. "We find the others," Yuki replied. "And then, we remind the galactic community why they were afraid of humanity in the first place." Over the next 2 weeks, Jin and Yuki carefully built their network of unenhanced humans and allies. The meetings were always secret, held in different locations, using coded messages. Jin was amazed to discover how many people had managed to avoid or resist the enhancement program. Some had hidden in space stations at the edge of human territory. Others had faked medical conditions that made them incompatible with the neural implants. A few enhanced humans had even started to recover their original personalities through sheer force of will, though they had to pretend to remain emotionally suppressed to avoid suspicion. The most surprising ally came from an unexpected source. Jin was meeting with Yuki in a maintenance corridor on the station when they heard footsteps. Both women tensed, ready to run, but the figure that emerged from the shadows was not human. The being looked like a giant insect, walking upright on 4 legs with 2 additional arms for manipulation. Its shell was a deep blue color with intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the light. Jin recognized the species immediately. Mantoid, one of the founding members of the Galactic Senate. "Please do not be afraid," the creature said, its voice coming through a translation device. "My name is Crix, and I wish to help your resistance movement." Yuki stepped forward, her scanner device ready. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" Crix made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter, but it sounded more like metal scraping against stone. "Because, Dr. Tanaka, my species was the first to receive the Senate's improvements. That was over 300 years ago." Jin felt her blood run cold. "Your species was enhanced too?" "Enhanced," Crix repeated bitterly. "Yes, that is the word they used. Before the improvements, mantoids were artists and musicians. We created beautiful sculptures and composed songs that could make other species weep with joy. We were inventors who solved problems through creative insight rather than just mathematical calculation." The alien engineer moved to a wall panel and began connecting devices that Jin did not recognize. "Now we are efficient. We build things that work perfectly and solve problems through logical analysis. We have not created a single work of art in 3 centuries. Our young are hatched already, knowing their life purpose based on aptitude testing. We are exactly what the Senate wanted, a predictable, manageable species." Yuki lowered her scanner. "Why are you helping us?" "Because when I saw what they did to your Dr. Chen, I remembered what we lost," Crix explained. "Your species still fights against the enhancement. Some of your people break free through willpower alone. We had forgotten that was even possible until we observed human behavior." Crix activated his devices, and a holographic map appeared in the corridor. It showed the layout of the entire diplomatic station, with red markers indicating security systems and blue markers showing the central neural network hub. "I have been preparing for this opportunity for 50 years, Crix continued. "I memorized the station's systems, identified security weaknesses, and developed bypass technologies. I was waiting for allies who still possessed the capacity for unpredictable action." Jin studied the map. The neural network hub was located in the most secure section of the station, protected by multiple layers of alien security technology. This looks impossible to reach. For a logical, predictable approach, yes, Crix agreed. But humans have a gift for impossible solutions. That is why the Senate fears you. As they planned their infiltration, more allies joined their cause. Dr. Tanaka introduced them to a mysterious entity that existed only as code in the station's computer systems. I call it the Wanderer, Yuki explained as they gathered in an abandoned storage bay. It's an artificial intelligence that has been secretly monitoring galactic civilizations for thousands of years. The Wanderer communicated through text messages on their devices, appearing and disappearing without warning. When Jin asked about its origins, the response was cryptic. I was created by a species that no longer exists. They gave me one purpose: to preserve what makes life worth living. Through the Wanderer's data, Jin learned the true scope of the Senate's control. Every major species in the galaxy had been gradually modified over centuries. The aquatic hydrants had once been capable of surviving in space without technology, but that ability was improved away to make them dependent on artificial life support systems. The energy-based Zephyrians had once been able to take physical form, allowing them to experience touch and physical sensation. But that was eliminated as unnecessary and distracting. Each species was told their modifications were improvements, the Wanderer explained. Each species was assured they would retain their essential nature. Each species was convinced that their unique traits were actually flaws that needed correction. How many species resisted? Jin asked. The answer chilled her. 17 tried to resist. They no longer exist. Oh. The Wanderer showed them records of civilizations that had rejected the Senate's improvements. Some had been economically isolated until they collapsed. Others faced mysterious plagues that targeted their specific biology. A few simply vanished entirely, with all records of their existence carefully erased from galactic databases. Humanity is the first species strong enough to potentially succeed at resistance, the Wanderer continued. Your emotional bonds and unpredictable thinking create resilience that other species lacked. But you must act quickly. The Senate has begun discussing permanent genetic modifications that will make the neural enhancements hereditary. This revelation spurred the resistance into action. They could not wait any longer. The plan they developed was typically human in its approach: illogical, emotional, and completely unpredictable. Instead of trying to sneak past the security systems, they would create a distraction so chaotic that the station's logical security protocols would not know how to respond. Crix would use his engineering access to trigger false emergency alerts across multiple systems simultaneously. Meanwhile, Jin would use her diplomatic credentials to request an urgent meeting with Senator Veltar, keeping the Senate leadership occupied with protocol discussions. While the station's attention was focused on these diversions, Yuki and a team of unenhanced humans would access the neural network hub through maintenance tunnels that Crix had modified to bypass security sensors. This plan has a very low probability of success, Crix observed as they prepared for the mission. Exactly, Jin replied. That's what makes it human. The night of the operation, Jin felt more nervous than she had ever been in her life. She was not just risking her own future, but the future of human consciousness itself. If they failed, the Senate would likely accelerate their plans for permanent genetic modification. If they succeeded, no one knew what the consequences might be. As she prepared to request her urgent meeting with Veltar, Jin received one final message from the Wanderer. Remember, Ambassador, you are not just fighting for humanity. You are fighting for the right of all conscious beings to remain authentically themselves. The galaxy has forgotten what that means. Show them. Jin straightened her diplomatic uniform and walked toward the Senate chambers. Behind her, Yuki and her team disappeared into the maintenance tunnels. Crix took his position at the engineering stations. The operation to free humanity was about to begin, and Jin could not shake the feeling that they were about to unleash something that would change the galaxy forever. She just hoped they were strong enough to handle what they were about to discover about themselves. As Jin reached the Senate chamber doors, alarms began sounding across the station. Emergency lights flashed in patterns she had never seen before. Over the intercom system, automated voices announced contradictory warnings in multiple alien languages. The diversion had begun, and there was no turning back. Jin took a deep breath and activated her diplomatic communicator. Senator Veltar, this is Ambassador Jin Soo-jin, requesting an urgent emergency consultation regarding human colony security protocols. The response came immediately. Ambassador, given the current station emergency status, all non-essential meetings are postponed. This matter concerns potential human involvement in the current emergency, Jin lied smoothly. I believe we may have a security breach that requires immediate Senate attention. There was a pause, then. Proceed to Conference Chamber 7. Security escort will meet you en route. Jin smiled grimly. The Senate's logical protocols made them predictable in their own way. Their desire to maintain control meant they could not ignore any potential threat, even if it meant dividing their attention during a crisis. As she walked toward the conference chamber, Jin whispered a prayer for Yuki and her team. In a few minutes, they would either free humanity from its artificial constraints or doom their species to permanent mental slavery. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn what humans were truly capable of when they had nothing left to lose. The neural network hub was exactly as Crix had described it, a massive chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with soft blue light. Each crystal contained the neural monitoring data for thousands of enhanced beings across the galaxy. Yuki could feel the weight of all those suppressed minds as her team entered the chamber through the maintenance access. There, she whispered, pointing to a central console that connected all the crystal arrays. That's where we need to upload the reversal signal. Her team consisted of 5 other unenhanced humans, each chosen for their specific skills. There was Maria Santos, a former Earth computer specialist who had avoided enhancement by living on a remote mining station. Tom Bradley was a security expert who had faked his own death during the early enhancement rollout. The others were colony workers who had managed to resist the neural modifications through various means. How long do we have? Asked Maria, as she began connecting her equipment to the console. Jin's distraction should give us 15 minutes before station security realizes the emergency alerts are false. Yuki replied. But once we start the upload, every monitoring system in the galaxy will detect what we're doing. Tom positioned himself at the chamber entrance with a scanner that would warn them of approaching security forces. Movement in the main corridors, but nothing heading this way yet, he reported. Yuki activated her reversal program and began the upload process. Immediately, warning lights began flashing throughout the chamber. The crystals started pulsing faster, and a low harmonic sound filled the air. The system is fighting us, Maria observed, watching her readouts. It's trying to isolate and contain the reversal signal. Keep pushing, Yuki ordered. We knew this would happen. The program is designed to overcome those defenses. Across the galaxy, the first effects began almost immediately. On Earth, Dr. Marcus Chen was conducting a routine efficiency review of the colonial administration when he suddenly stopped mid-sentence. The neural implant behind his ear sparked briefly, and for a moment, his face showed confusion. Marcus? His assistant asked. Are you experiencing a technical difficulty? Marcus looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time. The walls were covered with efficiency charts and production schedules. There were no personal photographs, no artwork, nothing that reflected individual personality or emotion. When did we remove all the decorations? He asked quietly. His assistant, still enhanced, looked puzzled by the question. Decorations serve no functional purpose in a work environment. They were removed during the optimization process 3 months ago. Marcus felt something stirring in his mind, like waking up from a long dream. He remembered having pictures of his family on his desk. He remembered keeping a small plant by his window because it made him feel peaceful. These memories felt distant and strange, but they were definitely his. On the mining colony of New Terra, the families of the trapped miners were gathered in a community center, calmly discussing resource allocation for the next quarter. Suddenly, several people began showing signs of distress. "Wait," said Elena Martinez, the wife of one of the trapped miners. "My husband is still down there. Why aren't we trying to save him?" The enhanced humans around her looked confused by her emotional outburst. "Elena, the cost-benefit analysis clearly showed that rescue operations were not feasible," explained the colony administrator. "I don't care about cost-benefit analysis," Elena shouted, tears streaming down her face. "That's my husband. We have to try." Similar scenes were playing out across human space as the reversal signal spread through the neural network. Enhanced humans began recovering their suppressed emotions and memories, often all at once. Many broke down crying as they realized what they had lost. Others became angry at what had been done to them. But the reversal process revealed something that even Yuki had not expected. In the neural network hub, alarms were now blaring constantly. The crystal arrays were overloading as they tried to process the massive amount of neural activity from awakening humans. "Something's wrong," Maria reported, staring at her displays in shock. "The human neural patterns are spiking beyond normal ranges. It's like the reversal process is activating dormant parts of their brains." Yuki looked at her readings and felt her heart race. The enhanced humans were not just recovering their original capabilities. They were developing new ones. On Earth, Dr. Chen was staring at a complex resource allocation problem that had puzzled the colonial administration for weeks. Suddenly, the solution appeared in his mind with crystal clarity. Not just a solution, but 12 different approaches, each optimized for different variables he had not even consciously considered. "How did I know that?" he whispered to himself. Elena Martinez, still crying over her husband's fate, suddenly felt a strange sensation. She could sense the emotional states of everyone around her. More than that, she could feel the presence of her husband, alive but weak, somewhere deep beneath the colony's surface. "He's in Section 7, she announced, her voice carrying absolute certainty. "Third level down, northwest corner. He's hurt, but alive." "Elena, that's impossible," the administrator protested. "You have no way of knowing that." "I can feel him," Elena replied. "I can feel all of them." Across human space, similar revelations were occurring. Humans were displaying unprecedented problem-solving abilities, intuitive knowledge that defied explanation, and emotional connections that transcended physical distance. In the Senate chambers, Jin was struggling to maintain her meeting with Senator Veltar, while the station's emergency systems created chaos around them. "Ambassador Jin," Veltar's energy form flickered with agitation. "Your species appears to be experiencing some form of collective neural malfunction. Our monitoring systems are detecting impossible activity patterns from enhanced humans throughout your territory." Jin tried to look surprised. "What kind of activity patterns?" "Enhanced cognitive performance beyond established baselines, emotional resonance across vast distances, and problem-solving capabilities that exceed logical frameworks," Veltar explained. "This should not be possible with the compatibility enhancers in place." "Maybe the enhancers are working better than expected?" Jin suggested innocently. "No." Veltar's voice took on a tone Jin had never heard before. "Fear. These patterns suggest that human neural architecture possesses capabilities that our analysis did not detect. The enhancers were not suppressing deficiencies. They were suppressing abilities." Through the station's communication systems, reports continued flooding in from across the galaxy. Human colonies were solving problems that had stumped them for years. Enhanced humans were breaking free of their emotional suppression faster than anyone thought possible. Some were even beginning to communicate telepathically with other humans across interstellar distances. In the neural network hub, the situation was becoming critical. The crystal arrays were overloading as they tried to process neural patterns that exceeded their design parameters. "We need to get out of here," Tom warned from his position at the entrance. "Security forces are converging on this section, and these crystals are starting to crack." Yuki watched her upload progress indicator reach 100%. The reversal signal had been successfully distributed to every neural network node in the galaxy. Now it would propagate to every enhanced being, spreading like a virus of freedom. "It's done," she announced. "Every species that was improved by the Senate will begin recovering their suppressed abilities." As her team prepared to evacuate, the first crystal array exploded in a shower of sparks. The harmonic sound in the chamber rose to a painful level. "Run!" Yuki shouted. They escaped through the maintenance tunnels just as the entire chamber erupted in cascading failures. The neural monitoring system that had controlled billions of beings for centuries was destroying itself rather than process the impossible neural patterns of awakening minds. But the real shock was yet to come. On distant worlds throughout the galaxy, other species were beginning to experience their own awakenings. The aquatic hydrans suddenly remembered how to survive in space. The mantoids started creating art for the first time in 300 years. The gaseous nebulons began forming complex emotional bonds that their logical modifications had prevented. Senator Veltar received emergency communications from every major world in the galactic community. Species that had been docile and predictable for generations were suddenly displaying the same unpredictable, creative, emotional behaviors that had made the Senate fear humanity. "What have you done?" Veltar demanded, his energy form now blazing with barely controlled panic. Jin stood up slowly, feeling a strange new confidence flowing through her. She could sense the awakening minds of humans across the galaxy, and through them, she could feel the liberation of every species that had been suppressed by the Senate's improvements. "We gave everyone back their souls," she replied calmly. "And now you're going to learn why you were so afraid of us in the first place." The galactic order that had existed for millennia was crumbling, and at the center of it all stood one unenhanced human woman who had refused to accept that efficiency was more important than heart. The emergency session of the Galactic Senate was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from every major species were present, but none of them looked the same as they had just days before. The mantoid delegation had arrived wearing colorful decorations and carrying artistic instruments. The hydrans were swimming through the chamber in complex patterns that served no logical purpose but seemed to express pure joy. Even the crystalline shard collective was humming in harmonies that made the chamber resonate with beautiful music. Senator Veltar floated at the center of the chaos, his energy form flickering between different colors as he struggled to maintain control. "Order!" he demanded. "This session will come to order." But for the first time in centuries, the other species were not following Senate protocols. They were talking among themselves, sharing stories of what they had remembered, celebrating abilities they had thought were lost forever. Ambassador Jin Soo-jin entered the chamber, surrounded by her human delegation. Dr. Marcus Chen walked beside her, his eyes bright with the intelligence and compassion that had been suppressed for months. Captain Sarah Kim followed with her security team, all of whom now carried themselves with the confident unpredictability that made humans so dangerous to authoritarian systems. "Senator Veltar," Jin announced as she took her place at the human section. "The Earth delegation calls for an immediate vote of no confidence in the current Senate leadership." "You have no authority to make such a call," Veltar responded, his energy form blazing brighter. "The Senate operates under established protocols that have maintained galactic order for a millennium. Protocols that required lobotomizing entire species?" Dr. Chen interjected. "I've been reviewing the medical data from the enhancement program. You didn't just suppress our emotions, Veltar. You tried to turn us into biological robots." Crick stood up in the mantoid section, his blue shell now decorated with intricate painted patterns that his people had not created in 300 years. The human Dr. Chen speaks truth. We have recovered records from before our improvement. Our species once composed music that could induce emotional states in other beings. We created sculptures that seemed to move with their own life. All of this was taken from us in the name of efficiency. Because emotional unpredictability creates chaos, Veltar argued. Before the improvement protocols, the galaxy was filled with wars, resource conflicts, and irrational decisions that caused suffering across thousands of worlds. Jin felt something new flowing through her mind. Not just her own thoughts, but the connected consciousness of awakened humans throughout the galaxy. Through this network, she could sense the experiences and insights of billions of people. It was overwhelming at first, but gradually, she learned to process the flood of information. "You're right that the galaxy had conflicts," Jin replied, her voice carrying new authority. "But you solved the wrong problem. You tried to eliminate the capacity for conflict instead of teaching beings how to resolve conflicts constructively. The previous system was inefficient," Veltar insisted. "The previous system was alive," said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at the communication panel where the Wanderer's text messages usually appeared. Instead, a holographic figure had materialized, a being that looked almost human, but with features that seemed to shift and change like flowing water. "I am the Wanderer," the figure announced. "I have observed galactic civilization for 5,000 years, watching species rise and fall, grow, and stagnate. I have seen the Senate's improvements reduce vibrant, creative civilizations to efficient but empty shells. You have no authority in this chamber," Veltar declared. "I have the authority of memory," the Wanderer replied. "I remember what each of your species was like before you accepted the Senate's improvements. The Zephyrians once composed poetry by changing the colors of stellar radiation. The Hydrons used to sing songs that could calm space storms. The Shard Collective created crystal gardens that grew in patterns of pure mathematical beauty." The Wanderer gestured to the assembled representatives. "Look around you, Senator Veltar. For the first time in centuries, this chamber contains actual representatives of living civilizations, rather than optimized administrative units." Jin could feel the emotional resonance flowing through the connected human consciousness, and she realized that something unprecedented was happening. The awakened humans were not just recovering their own abilities. They were somehow amplifying the awakening process in other species. "This is not about returning to chaos," Jin said, addressing the entire chamber. "This is about choosing growth over stagnation, creativity over efficiency, life over mere existence." She gestured to her datapad, which now displayed information flowing from the human consciousness network. "In the past 48 hours, awakened humans have solved resource distribution problems that the Senate couldn't address in decades. We've developed new technologies, created art that inspires cooperation between species, and established communication networks that make war practically impossible." "Impossible?" Senator Thex of the Shard Collective chimed, her crystalline form now resonating with musical tones. "How?" "Quote." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "When humans are connected through emotional resonance, we can feel the pain and joy of others as if it were our own. It becomes impossible to deliberately cause suffering because you experience that suffering directly. Instead of suppressing the capacity to feel, we're expanding it. Do this. And it's spreading," added Captain Kim. "The other species are beginning to develop similar connections as their suppressed abilities return." Veltar's energy form flickered with what could only be described as panic. "You are describing the collapse of organized civilization? Without centralized control, without logical decision-making protocols, without predictable behavior patterns, the galaxy will return to chaos." "No," Jin replied firmly. "We're describing the birth of actual civilization. What you created wasn't civilization, Senator. It was a very efficient prison. No. Around the chamber, representatives from different species were beginning to interact in ways that had been impossible for centuries. A hydran and a mantoid were collaborating on a musical composition. Several shard collective members were creating crystal formations that responded to the emotions of nearby beings. The energy-based nebulons were experimenting with taking semi-physical forms that allowed them to experience touch for the first time in generations. The question now, Jin continued, is what we do next. We can try to rebuild the old system of centralized control, or we can create something new, a galactic community based on voluntary cooperation, rather than enforced compliance. And if conflicts arise? Veltar asked desperately. Then we solve them, Dr. Chen answered. Not by removing the capacity to disagree, but by building the wisdom to disagree constructively. Not by eliminating emotions, but by learning to use emotions as guides toward better decisions. The Wanderer's holographic form nodded approvingly. This is what I have been waiting to see. Not the end of conflict, but the evolution beyond the need for it. Senator Veltar floated in silence for several minutes, his energy forms cycling through different colors. Finally, he spoke in a voice that sounded very different from his usual authoritative tone. We have maintained galactic order for so long that we forgot what we were trying to preserve. We became so afraid of chaos that we chose death over life. It's not too late, Jin said gently. The reversal process works on energy-based beings too. You can choose to remember what your species was like before the improvements. We were. Veltar paused, his form flickering as ancient memories began to surface. We were poets. We painted with stellar radiation and wrote symphonies in the songs of pulsars. We could take physical form to experience the universe through matter as well as energy. You can be that again, Jin offered. The transformation that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Over the following months, species after species chose to undergo the reversal process, recovering abilities and aspects of their nature that had been suppressed for centuries or millennia. The Galactic Senate was dissolved and replaced with a voluntary cooperative alliance where decisions were made through consensus rather than authority. Conflicts still arose, but they were resolved through the kind of creative problem-solving that only became possible when beings were allowed to think and feel without artificial limitations. Humanity took on a special role in this new galactic community, not as rulers or conquerors, but as guardians of authenticity. Human consciousness networks helped other species remember who they had been and supported them as they grew into who they wanted to become. The most terrifying thing about Earth's answer to the Senate's manipulation was not violence or conquest. It was something far more dangerous to those who valued control above all else. The gift of unlimited freedom, backed by the power to make that freedom real. Jin stood on the observation deck of the new Cooperative Alliance station, watching ships from dozens of species arriving for the first free galactic assembly in over 1,000 years. Each ship was unique, decorated with art and symbols that reflected the authentic nature of its crew. Any regrets? Dr. Chen asked, joining her at the viewport. Jin thought about the question. The galaxy was certainly less predictable now. Some worlds were choosing isolation to rediscover their own natures. Others were experimenting with radical new forms of social organization. There were conflicts and disagreements, and all the messy complications that came with genuine freedom. None at all, she replied. This is what life is supposed to look like. Through the human consciousness network, she could feel the agreement of billions of awakened minds across the galaxy. They had chosen growth over stagnation, creativity over efficiency, the beautiful chaos of authentic life over the sterile order of artificial control. And in that choice, they had discovered something that the Senate's improvements could never provide: the terrifying, wonderful, unlimited potential of beings who were free to become truly themselves.